No more gathering of tears, no more hopeless empty fears. Never again, never again, never again. We have some phenomenal panelists with us today. I am very excited. We had a little meeting to get together and chat with each other, and these ladies blew me away. So I'm sure that you will enjoy them. Let me introduce them to you. First, we have Carolyn Craven. Carolyn Craven is the founder of thegirlwithms.com. And we also have, right here, we have Arlene Grau. And she is a contributing columnist to the National Pain Report. And we have Maddie Ruud, who is a blogger. Her blog is called Ruud Awakenings. We are going to do some introductions, then we're going to respond to some questions that were selected by the organizing committee. And then we're going to look out to you and see what questions that you might have for our panelists. So as we're talking, think about questions, that come to mind. Maybe write them down if you want. And then when we have those last 15 minutes, we will come to our audience and see what questions you have for us. All right? Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. So, ladies, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Wonderful. It's really, like I said, I'm really excited that you guys are our panelists. You blew me away. So let's go ahead and get started. Why don't we first start with just a little warm-up? Give me a brief introduction. A few words about your life, about your family, work, pain advocacy that you might do, and also mention, if you're comfortable, what your diagnosis is and how long you've been experiencing pain. So why don't we start with you, Caroline?
Okay, my name's Caroline Craven, and I am the girl with MS. I came down with MS 13 years ago. I was traveling in Guatemala and basically woke up to about a 3-martini breakfast. I couldn't walk and I couldn't see unassisted. It struck me pretty hard, pretty fast. By the time I got to a neurologist, found out I had MS. Started a disease-modifying drug, but then I got into a 3-year double-blind study at USC and learned holistic nutrition and a lot of other ways to manage life and manage my illness through that. It was a little wobbly getting on this chair, I have to say, because people with MS don't have good balance. So if I fall, that's right, I was going to lean on you. Well, okay, I'm going to lean on you now.
Please do.
Which is perfect, so if you see me wobbling. No, but I've been working on and off with pain for 13 years since I got the disease. It's been excruciating at times. Now people say, oh, you look great. I even had a doctor say, well, what's wrong? I don't even think you have MS. You look great, recently. And I thought, well, guess what I'm doing is good, but having an invisible disease is almost worse than one that people can see at times. So I get that with you all here, and that's the big part of what I learned, have been learning over the years.
Thank you. Maddie.
Yes, I am Maddie Ruud, and I live in Oakland, California, with my partner Brendan and 2 dogs that we've adopted. And I have been in pain for about 5 years now. I have an ongoing fluid diagnosis situation, shall we say. I know a lot of you have spent many years searching for the correct diagnosis. My current diagnoses, which approximate my experience, are chronic migraine and chronic daily headache. I have a baseline of pain constantly all the time, moderate to severe, and then I have 20, 25, sometimes 30 migraines a month.
Wow.
My name's Arlene Grau, like she said. You can't. I'm nervous. I write a column called Misunderstood for the National Pain Report. I'm married to that wonderful man over there. We have 2 children, a 7 and a 3-year-old. I've been dealing with chronic pain for 7 years. I was diagnosed at 22, 29. Give you my list. I have been diagnosed with lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, Sjogren's, vasculitis, and migraines.
It's a lot to deal with.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
And my name is Mindy Meyer. I am married to an amazing woman named Anne, and we just celebrated our 6th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And actually, we got together after I had been diagnosed it's been over 13 years. I can't count. It's been 11, but it feels longer. But I pushed open a door and tore something in my shoulder, and it turned into complex regional pain syndrome. It took about 9 months to get diagnosed, which is short compared to some stories I've heard. And then I guess it was about 5 or 6 years later, I developed fibromyalgia. And I've been working with For Grace, helping with these conferences, and it's just been a wonderful way to do pain advocacy. And they have a Women in Pain Circle, and I'm part of that. And it's been a wonderful support system. So I'm really grateful to have the comradeship that I have. So, ladies, let's dive into the questions. So we've talked a lot about the new normal and acceptance. And I want to start by asking you, how did you come to your new normal? And what is that? What do those words mean for you?
That's a good question. I analyze my new normal every day. I have to be honest, every day I wake up in the morning, I analyze what my body's going to be like. Am I going to need a cane? Can I get out of bed? Can I go hiking? I mean, it's that random. One thing I didn't say earlier, and I will add because this is about pain, and about 5 years after my diagnosis, my doctor said I had fibromyalgia. She said it often runs with MS or other illnesses. So I just often always say MS, but I relate to the fibromyalgia, and it's a painful one. But every day I say, I look at, how is my day going to be, and how am I feeling, and what is my new normal today? And it's really taught me to always have a plan B for the day. That's probably my number one lesson is you wake up, because you may have all the intention in the world to have your plan A, but your body's saying, no, you're not getting out of bed. So plan B is always a good one.
Thanks. Maddie, what about with you?
Yes, I think that, as Caroline said, it's really important to me to have normal be a fluid thing, because it can be very different from one day to the next. And so for me, it took 3.5 years of really being in denial, going through, the 5 stages of grief, which I know previous conferences have addressed. Going through the denial, pretending that there was no problem, that if I just went about my daily life, it would disappear. Feeling angry and resentful, angry with my doctors, angry with my workplace for not supporting me, angry with myself for not doing better, and bargaining, if I am just perfect, if I just do everything right, if I just follow my doctor's instructions to the T, if I am just the most wonderful, loving partner who never snaps out of pain, then this will go away, right? Because I'm such a wonderful person. And then a long period of severe depression. So I was leaving the house maybe once every 2 weeks to go to the doctor, and that was it. And I've come over the last 1.5 years, probably, really far in terms of trying to challenge what normal is and just reach a little bit further, and continue to try to push that bar little by little, gently, not the cold plunge shock to the system, but gently increase my level of activity and my satisfaction with my life in pain.
Thank you.
For myself, personally, I think normal to me is whatever I make it. I don't think you can get 2 people in a room and ask them what normal means to them and get the same answer. So for me, my normal is going to the hospital every month for my treatments and taking my kids with me and getting put in the back room because they're loud. seeing my doctor once a week, and having camaraderie with the nurses and staff there. Not knowing what tomorrow's going to bring, like the lady said, you don't know if you're going to be able to do what you have, set in your mind. So not having my expectations too high for myself, and knowing that no matter whatever I get done in the day is just enough for me. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter, if the person next to me thinks that I did nothing all day long. If I got up and I took a shower, that's enough. So to me, that's my normal.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, in what all three of you shared, there was an underscoring of patience and understanding with where you are, and really the need to have flexibility, because you never know what you're going to expect, when you wake up in the body you're wearing. And those are some really key and important aspects of that new normal. What made you avoid or run from accepting that new normal? What were the things that kind of got in your way, And then what made you stop running?
Oh,
I was going to switch
Mix
it up.
I know, you can mix it up.
Let's step on the next question. I'll give you some notice.
No, that's now that you said that, I lost my train of thought. So.
I can go. It's
Yeah,
fine.
go for it. Go for it. I'm just switching my tongue.
It was meant to be.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the biggest factors for me was the fact that I was 22. I was a young mother, and I had, at the time, a 1-year-old. So being diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia was not something in my plan book, in the books for me. So I didn't want to accept it, one, because I thought I was too young, two, because nobody in my family has any of the diseases I have, and three, because there's got to be a mistake. They must have misdiagnosed me. I must have gone to some wahoo doctor who doesn't know what he's talking about. So I'm not gonna, this is not for me. And I finally, I stopped running from it, and I learned to accept it. The day I took my daughter to her preschool, which was a Christian preschool, she was about 3 years old, and I went to get her out of her car seat. I couldn't, because the buckle was too hard for me to undo. So I panicked, and she's 3. I want to get out of the car. And I'm looking around like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to carry the whole thing inside. And somebody walked by, and I asked if they could help me. So they took her out for me. Thank you. And I realized that if I'm not going to do this for myself, I need to do it for her. And I need to be around to watch her grow up. And I needed to accept the fact that I couldn't control what was coming. And I needed to educate myself, which I did. I read as much as I could about, I didn't know what lupus was. I thought it was like a form of food. Rheumatoid arthritis, I thought only old people, I thought only old people got. And fibromyalgia, I don't even know how to spell it half the time. So, it was stuff that I didn't know, and I educated myself, and I didn't just do it for myself. I did it for, now both of my daughters, and I stopped running.
Maddie.
Yeah. I think that for me, one of the main barriers to acceptance was fear of the judgment of others. Are other people going to believe me? Are they going to think I'm dramatic? Are they going to think I'm making this up, that I'm just crazy or seeking attention? are people going to judge me, right? I mean, we all have that fear. We all basically want to be validated for our personal truths. And I was afraid that this was not a truth that other people could validate, and therefore I couldn't let myself go there in a certain way. And so that was one of the very strong factors weighing on me. In addition to, you know, it feels almost like giving up sometimes, acceptance. It feels like, how do I accept that this is true and that it may never change, and not just give up and not have no hope and just be in despair. And I was in despair for a while. I went to that place, and I think I had to go there in order to come to the realization that I could be in that place, I can be in pain, and I can hide, and I can be in the corner, and I can try to not bother anyone, and I can take myself out of my loved ones' lives, and that's not good for them, and that's not good for me. Or I can be in pain, and I can do the best that I can do, whatever that is on the day, whatever that is in the situation, just trying to think positively and make the next good choice available to me, if that makes sense.
It does. It does.
Oh, thank you. It's amazing. When I was first diagnosed, I have to say I was sort of grateful it was MS when I heard the words, and mainly because they were ruling out a brain tumor. When I got sick, there were two of my good friends got sick at the same time, and one did end up dying of a brain tumor, and one had kidney failure and ended up passing away. And so I actually kind of had a sort of a very grateful look when I was first diagnosed. Pain was just part of it. So I almost just took it as, you know, this is just something I need to start dealing with and start living with. What's become very interesting is, as I said, as I start to do better or look better physically, when people don't understand, you still have the pain going on. You know, it's still part of your life. And this morning's talk about the Batman was just so wonderful, because it's that feeling of acceptance of just letting go, let God. That's been a big theme for me over the last couple years, is if you can't find something, it's just not meant to be there, a part of your life right then, you know? And a lot of this stuff, for me, it was letting go of my career. It's how I had defined myself. I was forced into retirement. I was forced to sell my house and move back in with my parents, and, you know, at the age of 30-something, and it was just an awkward time. But I have to say, you know, the more I've looked at what I can be grateful for and really tried to be grateful for what has happened and accept the fact that if it just doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, and always have a plan B, and nobody knows your plans really but you anyway, so, you know, that helps. That's helped me a lot.
It's interesting. It's interesting, Carolyn, because you talked about that you were happy to get a diagnosis, and that the diagnosis was better than some diagnoses as it could have been. And for me, even though it was only 9 months, it just felt like such an eternity to get a diagnosis. I went through 13 doctors, and that wasn't fun.
No.
As Jennifer said, you know, you're faking. I heard I was a drug seeker. You know, I was avoiding work, and I was a workaholic, so that was a laugh. So I was so grateful to get a diagnosis that it was like, okay, what's next? So I didn't really think about it as being brave or courageous or anything like that, but as I'm sitting on stage with you and hearing your stories, I really am struck by the courage that it took to just say, this is my life, and I'm going to be about living it. So, thank you. It's interesting. It never fails when I talk to people, women as well as men, who are dealing with a life-altering experience, that there are these key stages, these transition points that they go through before they actually get to the place where they can say, okay, yeah, this is my life, and I'm here, and I'm going to live here where I am. I'm going to live where I am. And so I just wanted to ask you, as you reflected on your path, what were some of the stages that you noticed that you went through? And why don't we start with you?
Well, I spoke a little bit about this already, so I can leave extra time for our other two ladies. But I really liken it to the stages of grief. For me, that really fits my journey, and I know it doesn't fit everyone's journey, but it does fit my pain journey.
Yeah, you nailed it on the head when you said that earlier, I thought, because, and I went through this with a lot of help with people, but you're forced to lose your career or whatever it is. It's part of you that you've lost, and you have to grieve that just like you've lost a best friend, because you really have. The person that I knew that was a whitewater rafting guide, a horse trainer, rock climber, mountain bike racer, she can barely sit on this stool, to be honest. She's no longer there, but it's time to look forward. What can you do, and keep that forward focus.
I'd have to agree with them, but I remember being mad a lot. I was really, really angry all the time. I blamed God. I asked him, why me? And then I reached a point where I was just extremely depressed, and I didn't know I was depressed because I'd still act like the old me. I joke around. I was smiling. I looked as put together as I could look. And I felt like I was still, the same Arlene as always. But I would have days where I just wouldn't want to get out of bed. And I went through depression for years. And it got to the point where I said, you know what? Screw it. Sorry. I give up. I don't want to take my medicine anymore. I'm not going to see the doctor. Whatever happens, happens. I think I lasted like 4 days, and I was like, oh my God, I need my medicine. Like, I need not my drugs, but, my medication for everything. I mean, I'm currently on like 13 medications, so try to take that all away, plus all the pain meds. But I was angry, then I was depressed, and then I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm not going to let it take the best of me. I'm still, inside, there's still, that person is still there. And even though my body may become deformed, I may, get sick, I might be in the hospital all the time, I'm still me deep down inside. And like we've been talking about all day, I accepted it. And I learned to move forward and move past it. And just because I said I was depressed doesn't mean I'm not going to get depressed in the future. And all those stages that we've been through, it doesn't mean that you don't fall back. You take a step forward. Sometimes you take two back, and it's just it's wobbly.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. Is that it's not it's not a straight line trajectory. Often it's cyclical, and I can do the 5 stages of grief in one day sometimes, depending on what the day is. So it's not like we've achieved this Zen space when everything is great and we're in pain, but we are just we still rage and we still are angry or sad or any number of other emotions. And the goal is just to try to keep ending at acceptance. Just keep trying to come back there.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's really so pertinent that you keep going through the stages, because there's new things to accept, things change. And it's just ever evolving. So that's just a really excellent insight. Thank you. And it really very nicely dovetails into our next question, which is, so how do you handle it when you hit those walls again? You know, how do you handle it when you're like, oh my God, I didn't think I'd have to go there again, you know, and then sure enough, there you are, you know. How do you deal with that? Because it can be really, I know for me, it can be really difficult.
Yeah, yeah. And you know that I just had one happen, a relapse happen a couple months ago, and here I am back on a cane, and it was the middle of summer, and people with MS don't do well in the heat. That can be a major factor, but I found myself back on this cane, and I was like, gosh, you know, just a couple weeks ago I was walking, you know, and feeling good, and doing my yoga, and doing everything, but it's just, you find yourself going back there, and it is, yeah, that's a real tough one, because what I've had to do is just have faith and learn to have faith that my body will bounce back. It may not bounce back to the level it was before the relapse or before just not feeling good. I used to not have that faith. I used to have a relapse and I'd really panic. I would kind of fall into panic mode of like, where am I going to come out of this? Am I going to be, you know, in a wheelchair or what? But I've had to let go of that and got to let go of it and did let go of it, because it's just negative energy you're building up in your head and mind and body and soul. So just, I try not to just think of what are the possibilities, and then just, you know, can I get back to my balanced state, and have faith that I will and continue doing so.
Maddie?
I use, as I spoke earlier, a technique about reminding myself to make the next available best choice. Given the place that I'm in, given that I'm raging mad, or given that I am in so much pain that all I can do is cry, or given that I'm in pain that I'm in so much pain that I cannot cry, you know, what is the next choice that's in front of me? And let me make the best choice there, rather than dwelling on, you know, how I've fallen back, or how I'm not doing good enough, or I need to try harder. I try to focus on moving forward, and I do that by reminding myself, what is your next available best choice?
Arlene?
For me, I hit walls all the time. I shouldn't have a license. I thought I was done with falling back over the last year and a half. I've been in and out of hospital, I'd say every month, for various reasons, flares, infections, you name it. And I started doing better. And March of this year, I got a staph infection. And it was like, just overnight, I went in and I told my doctor, my knee's really swollen. And he drained it, and he was like, this isn't arthritis. This is something else. We need to admit you. Same day, I get admitted. And then later on that night, they're like, we need to prep you for surgery. And I'm like, what? And I have this thing with my husband where I don't make him come visit me at the hospital every time. And if it falls on the weekend, then he can bring the girls and they can come visit. But other than that, I don't need someone physically there. I can have like an invisible support group, and I'm okay with that. That's just me personally. But they had to make me sign 2 waivers. You know, a lot of people when you go in for surgery. So 1, we're gonna clean your knee and you know, fix the problem, take the staph infection out because it was in my right knee. 2, we might just take your leg. And it's just like, you go into the doctor to your doctor's office for one thing, and it's another, and I freaked out. And I called my husband, and I was like hyperventilating, you know, you need to come now, like, you know, I need you here. So he rushed over. My surgery was scheduled for like 4 a.m. and it was during the week. So, you know, he had someone watch the girls, came and was with me for a bit. And for me, I find that talking about it and trying to laugh about it helps. So of course I call my parents, you know, and my mom, my dad, and like my dad jokes and he's like, well, you know, you want to be a pirate, you can have peg leg, like
That's
funny.
great.
And you know, I'm crying and I'm like, it's not funny. I mean, you know, for me, laughter has always been the best medicine. And I think that if I wasn't positive in that sense and I didn't find some humor in it, then I would go crazy. You know, and my family is just the same. You know, when they've come to visit me in the hospital and I'm doped up on, you know, the PCA pump. You guys, most of you know. Apparently there was a bear in my room once, and then another time I told my brother to hide my gun from the doctor. That's how high I was. But you know, they find humor in it, and of course they make fun of me afterwards, and now I can't live it down. But
Oh, thank you.
you're welcome.
You know, it's interesting. I never really thought I'd be like grateful for a pain. But I think the thing that helps me is I've had so much practice hitting walls. I was saying to Jen at lunch that, you know I've been there before, so I know that, you know, I've had the pain and I've hit the wall and I've gotten back up. And I think that's the thing that helps me the most is that I've been there before. And recently I was at a movie theater and I hit a handle that was weird the wrong way and it caught my arm, and this is where I'm affected with the crips. And I couldn't use my arm, like I couldn't lift it. And it was like, okay, I can't use the arm right now. And my family's like, okay, well, we're gonna go home. And I'm like, I've done this before. We're gonna go out for Japanese food and we're gonna eat. And they're like, you can't lift your arm. I'm like, I can use chopsticks left-handed. And I was in pain and it hurt and I cried, you know, but I've been there before, and I think that's what helps me the most is knowing I've hurt and I've gotten better and I've gotten back up, and I'm gonna hurt and I'm gonna get back up, and I'm just really grateful to know I can get back up and I have a great support system. So I think that's what's helped the most. So our last formal question. If you could go back to the self you were before you got to acceptance and share with them the perspective you have now, what would you say to them? What would you say to her?
You'll be surprised, but be grateful what's in front of you. Trust yourself, it's going to be okay. And just take every moment you can to enjoy life. It's really every single moment you can. Stop and smell the roses. Definitely.
Thank you.
I think that I would just tell myself that there is life. It's not over. It feels like it's over. It's not over. There are ways to go on. There are ways to find joy and love and laughter and all the good things that you want out of life. I would just tell myself it's not over. There are some rough times ahead, but you're going to learn important lessons. You're going to get good opportunities. You're going to find out who really loves and supports you unconditionally. And while you may lose other people, the core, the most important things in life, being loved ones, and joy and laughter and play and all of those things, you can still have them.
Thank you.
I think I would probably tell myself to never give up, because I've had more than my share of moments when I've thrown in the towel. And I would tell myself that, you know, there is life after pain. And that, you know, just because I was diagnosed with this, it doesn't define who I am. and it's not, it might be a life sentence right now because there is no cure, but it's not a death sentence. So I'd probably tell myself just to never give up hope.
I think I wasn't going to answer this question, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. I would tell myself that it's going to be hard. It's going to be harder than you could possibly imagine. And it's going to be more worthwhile than you can possibly imagine. That the gifts that come out of this experience are going to be beyond what you could have dreamt of, and that the person and the resolve that you're going to discover inside of you are going to be amazing. And that society doesn't know a whole lot of things, so don't look to them for answers. They don't know that healing is measured in decades, years and decades, not days and months. And don't measure yourself by other people's yardsticks. Yeah. So love yourself and hang in there, and just know that the discoveries are going to make everything you go through so worth it. Hang in there. And that's what I'd say. I think that question just got me so emotional because, I think back to that person, and I was just so scared and freaked out and alone, And I can imagine that many of us were in those very same places. And it would be great if we could have somebody to say the things that we know now to us. Yeah. And I hope for people who are listening, who are in rough places, that our experience can be of some value. Yes. So, it's time for audience participation time. So if we have some questions in the audience, can we get somebody with a microphone? I see some questions at that table over there. Where's John? I think John's out of the room. Does anybody know where the mic is?
Oh, sorry.
We have a volunteer. Do you mind grabbing a mic?
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Deb. And we have a question over there, that lovely lady in the green.
Doctors tell you that you're going to get worse. It's absolutely inevitable that whatever, all that you have is going to get worse and worse and worse. That's my question. What do you do with that in your head?
Ladies?
I have a degenerative disease. I can't say it. I will most likely end up in a wheelchair, and there are days where I'm close to it. You know what? It really goes back to me of just trying to keep as positive as possible. As long as I'm alive, I'm very grateful to be alive, and that's what I look at. What's the alternative? So.
Ladies, any other thoughts on that?
I actually was told by doctors that I was going to get better. I was told that there was no way my pain was going to last more than 5 years. I have a very different experience, so I'll let Arlene speak to this.
I don't know that I'm wise enough to answer that question, but I know that I've had those days when I feel like it's never going to get better. But I think you need to give yourself a goal or give yourself an objective. Maybe you have a child, maybe you have a grandchild, somebody who you want to watch grow up. And maybe somebody who loves you more than you can imagine. And you can either, it sounds rude or wrong, I guess, suck it up and keep going. That's what I tell myself, because I don't have a choice. I have 2 kids. I'm either going to suck it up and be a mom today, or I'm going to, lay in bed all day and my kids are gonna run amok and light the house on fire. But I have, my objective, I have my reason, and it doesn't matter how bad it gets. I have to continue and strive and move forward for that because I want to get to tomorrow, and today may be horrible and I woke up in immense pain, but you know what? Tomorrow may be better, and tomorrow I might be just a little bit happier. So I don't think you should, lose hope completely. You should just keep on trucking.
Yeah.
Keep on keeping on.
I've heard both. I've heard doctors say, oh, you're never going to get better. And I've heard doctors say, oh, you can get better. And, in Spanish, there's this word, word means power, poder, but in the sense of to be able. And I always think, hey, I got the power. So it's, what do I want to do? What do I want to do with the days that I have? And how do I want to live them? And I do my own research. And if doctors don't have the answers, I look for them myself. I'm kind of a type A personality, as I'm sure many of us are in this room and watching. So like the other lady said, discover what you need to for yourself and keep moving and find your own truth. It may not come out of a doctor's mouth. It may, but it may not. Other questions?
Yeah, one of you mentioned that you had to retire and that you were not sure what diagnosis that you were happy that you got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis rather than other. Did it in any time doctors provided wrong diagnosis, or how do you deal with jumping from one doctor to another to get a second opinions or what have you, and then dealing with your job or calling sick or trying to balance the job, the house, your disease, your doctors, and so forth and so on? And what part of was there any spiritual faith involved in your lives?
Very much so, actually. That's a great question. When I got sick, I was so sick when I got to the neurologist, I was positive MS in 3 different, between the MRI, the spinal tap, and the doctor visit, because I couldn't even walk a straight line. The diagnosis came pretty quick, which was great. I had a great neurologist for 10 years, and then she retired. They should never, ever be allowed to retire. Saying ever, ever. I went to one guy for 2 years, from past, and not even 2 years. I went like 4 times, and he goes, I don't even know what's wrong with you. I'm sending you back down to USC. And I'm like, that cost me a couple MRIs and this and that. It was just, sorry, digressing. But when I got sick, I was living down in the Hollywood Hills, actually. I'd moved back from Oregon. My house was in Oregon, but I'd already moved down to LA. We had a high-tech company at the time. When I got sick, I actually just moved in with my parents and moved back to La Cañada, Flintridge, which is where I grew up. And I'll never forget going to church after I'd gotten sick again. I grew up going to this church. I was baptized, married, divorced, everything at this church. But I'd also moved away for about 20 years. So a lot of these people I hadn't seen in a long time. And some I didn't know. But I'll never forget the support of that community of church and that faith that I had when I was told that I was diagnosed with MS. I really kind of had a comforting faith that I was raised with, that I thought, well, as long as I'm still alive, I guess that's, I felt blessed. But that community from the church, it's amazing what good friends I have gained over the last 13 years. And most of them are friends with my parents. They're, in their 80s or about. Some people I had never known before. Some had known me since birth. One couple I'd never known. They were some of the nicest couple in the world. In fact, he just passed away. His memorial's tomorrow. But the way this the community for me, church, faith, it played a big role in how I handled the illness and how I got through the illness, and then the friendships and relationships I have today.
Well, I was completely clueless when my pain came out of nowhere, and at first we thought that it was some post-viral headache, and I had a lot of tests, and I had a lot of demands put on me by my first neurologist in terms of cutting out everything possible that you want to eat ever. He told me that I should no longer sigh, that I needed to be more careful about my, that sighing was causing my headache, and various other strange things. And I did not benefit from the knowledge that my sisters have shared with me afterwards, that you really need to advocate for yourself. You really need to say, no, this is not working for me. I'm going to find another doctor. No, you don't know what you're talking about. That is not my experience. I'm going to go find somebody who does validate my experience, my truth. And it is a spiritual thing, I think, to connect to that, whether it's God or universal energy or whatever it is that you identify with, a higher power, or I think that is really important, whatever it is for you, in keeping you grounded when there's so much swirling around you and you're trying to keep your footing while different doctors are throwing different things at you. And so having some kind of grounding, not necessarily related to other people, but related to you and where you are at, that you can pull on yourself, I think is really important.
Arlene.
To answer the portion where she asked about how you deal with work, I worked for a school district for over 10 years, since I was like 16. And we get, paid sick time and time and a half. When I got sick, I was 22 and I had, benefits and everything, and that was great. But up until maybe 3 years ago, I started missing work a lot. And I had to get, it got to the point where I had to go and talk to my HR director and let her know what was going on. And, this is why I'm out. I'll bring you doctor's notes. That's fine, but this is what's going on with me. And that's why I was comfortable with sharing what was going on. And, by law, that's all I had to do. And as I got worse and worse, I was out more and more. And look, I was lucky enough to have a boss who understood, and she worked around my hours, worked around what my doctor allowed me to work. I went from 8 hours to 4 hours to 2 hours. And then on May 1st of last year, I was driving to work, and I was on so much pain medication, fentanyl patch, opiates, everything, that I fell asleep at the wheel and I crashed into a light post. And they said the crash should have killed me. It totaled my car, but I didn't die, obviously. But after that, my doctor said, that's it. I've tried, because I was the one saying, I'm not going on disability. No. I'm 28. You're crazy. But he was like, no, I can't continue to allow you to put yourself in harm's way. And, my husband and I spoke, and of course, that's what my doctor wanted. So we went along with it. I'm now permanently on disability, so I went into, which is weird. My daughter tells everybody I'm retired, but I'm 29. But it's retirement disability. It's been over a year, because that happened in May, and I'm still waiting for Social Security. And that's been the hardest part, because financially, there aren't many resources for people like us. And my husband is the sole breadwinner. We have 2 kids, but we have so much love and support from the small, group of family and friends that we've surrounded ourselves with, that they won't let us go without food or without shelter You know, they will not allow us to suffer, you know, and they've all kind of, in one way or another, grouped together, and they'll bring over stuff, or they'll help out with the girls, or whatever it is that they can do. But financially, it's been stressful, you know, and that's one of the biggest triggers for autoimmune. It's stress. And your doctor is like, okay, I'm taking you off of work because stress is causing, you know, all these triggers, but then you're off work and you've got no money coming in. How are you supposed to survive? And, you know, I got a rejection letter saying, well, you know, pretty much I'm too young. I'm sick enough, but I'm too young to be on disability. So, you know, now I have to wait for a trial, and I have to get a lawyer, and everything costs money, you know, and it's hard. But there are lawyers who do it for, you know, they take a percentage at the end, so you don't have to pay anything up front. So it's just a matter of finding resources, I guess. But it is hard, you know, and for anyone who's been through the process and who's going through it, they know it's not, you know, turn in your paperwork and you're approved. They deny everyone pretty much the first time around.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. Natalie?
This is aimed for Arlene. Sorry, you just poured your heart out, and I'm going to make you do it
Then
all
you
over
drink some
again.
water.
Get ready.
I'm 20. I have CRPS for the past 5 years, so I haven't had the chance of having children. And one day I want to be able to have them, but I want to know how you explain to your children what was going on when they're finally old enough to understand.
Damn, that hurts.
Sorry.
One, because I can't have kids anymore.
You don't have to. You don't have to.
No,
answer.
it's fine. Give me a second. Two, because one day I got a call at work from my daughter. She was about 4, and she was throwing a fit and wouldn't let anyone help. And it was because she said her mom was a liar, and she wasn't sick because she's not coughing. She's 4 at the time, so she doesn't understand what, you know, mom has to go to the hospital because she's sick. Mom's not here because she's sick. You know, my absence because I'm sick to her is like, well, you look fine, Mom. You're not coughing, you know, so I don't understand. So at age 4, I had to sit her down and tell her, you know, there are different kinds of sick. You know, some people have something that'll go away right away, and others have something that is going to be with them for the rest of their life. And you're right, I don't have a cough, but I promise you I'm not a liar, because I am sick. You just can't see it on the outside. Now my 3-year-old, she's had to live, you know, with it since she was born. So it's a way of life for her. But for my youngest, she's had to grow up really, really fast. Like when she was 4, she knew how to say stethoscope, and I can hardly say it, and I'm 29. But you know, I wouldn't discourage you just because you're sick, don't have kids. You know, some people say that because a lot of people told me when I decided I wanted to have, you know, another child, well, you don't do pregnancy well, because I had preeclampsia. My daughter was 5 weeks early. She was in the NICU for 2 weeks, et cetera, et cetera. 8 weeks old, she had surgery, and I just wanted to slap them, but I just said, well, you know what, it's our decision. And yeah, it was hard. I saw high-risk OB, and getting her into the world was hard, but she's here and she's healthy. There's nothing wrong with either one of my kids, so I wouldn't discourage you. If anyone ever tried to put that in your head, but explaining it to them, I think is difficult, because you have to do it when they're it's at their terms. You know, I wasn't ever gonna just sit my kid down and say, hey, your mom's sick. You know, I realized when she did that, that she was acting out because she was frustrated and angry, and she didn't know what was going on with her mom. And if it wasn't for her school calling and telling me, you know, that's what she was saying, I would have never known. So I chose that as my opening, you know, to tell her what was going on. And I let her know, you know, and you know, this is what mom's gonna do, and this is what's going on with mom, and this is why mom can't be here. And now, you know, she'll ask, well, what time is your infusion on Saturday? At 8 a.m. Can I go with you? You're gonna be bored for 2 hours. It's okay. And the nurses look forward to seeing her, you know, so it's not something that's gonna hinder them, I don't think. If anything, it's making them stronger.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Ladies, this has been such an amazing pleasure and joy. Thank you for opening your hearts and sharing your challenges and your soaring joys and the experiences you've had on this crazy, wild journey, ride. Yeah. And thank all of you. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you.